to edit that bit out. Hey everyone, welcome to Just One Word with Jan Obridge. Today I've got an extra special guest with me. I'll introduce her in just a minute. But before that, I just want to, I have to share some really sad news. And those of you that have been watching for a couple of weeks will have met Pastor Michael Bassett, my pastor, my good friend of many, many years. And I know that some of you have got it in your diary that is coming back on the 22nd and the 29th to continue with his story. Unfortunately, I've just heard that Michael went home to be with the Lord. So good news for him, but for us, it hasn't hit me yet. I'm totally in shock. But please do pray for Denise, his wife, and his family, and that, because I was just talking to him last week about future plans. So this was a total shock. But on the positive side, we know where he's gone, and we can continue to pray. I'm praying for Denise, her lover, and the girls, and all the family. He'll be sadly missed. I mean, he was just a tremendous man, an incredible ambassador for the body of Christ, changed so many people's lives, sowed into so many people's lives. And I know that a lot of you were waiting for the rest of his story. You only heard the beginning of it. Maybe over the coming weeks, I'll just kind of drop little bits of it in here and there as I get opportunity. But yeah, so really, really sad. But before I go any further, just to kind of interject between that really sad news and my guest, I'm going to just play a song for you, which is actually one of her songs. So hold your horses, here it comes.
We sit in the shadow of Shaddai, hidden in the strength of God Most High. His arms wrap around and they protect me. I can run to you and hide.
Yeah, so that is Kelly Tasker, or Kelly Obridge Tasker, as she puts on her Facebook. As some of you might have recognized by now, that we have a name in common, and that's because she's my daughter, and I've invited her to come on because she has a wonderful testimony, and she's very gifted, and I'm very proud of her. So please welcome Kelly Obridge Tasker. Hi, babe. Good to
Hi,
see
how you
you.
doing? It's very strange hearing you say things about me.
I always say nice things
I
about you.
know you do.
But yeah, it's I know that you have a great testimony, and that that what you've got to say is really excellent. So what I'm going to do, we'll just do an introduction first. I mean, um, I won't ask you what it's been like to be my daughter.
You want me to lie?
But yeah, I'm so proud of you. It's beautiful. You've got an amazing voice, and it's only really in the last few years, isn't it, that you've really come into your own when it comes to your singing and what have you. Tell us a bit about that. About, before we go back to the beginning, tell us a bit about this era of your life. Tell us a bit about you for a start. You know, who are you? You know.
So I guess kind of like the singing element started sort of pre-worship, and even though it was from being in church in London, I was very young and I desperately wanted to be part of the band, because Mum headed up the band. She was the worship pastor, I think it was called back then. I can't really remember. It's so long ago. But I was desperate. I just desperately wanted to be a part of it, but I was so young, and there was an age limit at that time, so I couldn't be. So I attended all the rehearsals every week and watched everybody else, and just kind of looked upon it in awe, really. And I played piano from a very young age to about grade 5 or grade 6 at piano, but I gave it up as soon as I left school, and in fact before that, and I've kind of forgotten how to play piano, but I always loved to sing, and I got the opportunity to sing as part of the backing choir for Barry Manilow, and you youngsters probably are thinking, who's that? But just go and Google him, he's old. But it was just
that was a pretty amazing experience, though, wasn't it?
it was phenomenal. And
well, I got to back Barry Manilow.
yeah, and just kind of the feeling. And I was in church at the time, and you know, worship was very, very different. It was a very much a sort of a 99% African church, and you know, it was just very natural. We just knew how to worship and dance and jump around, and you know, being young, you know, there wasn't this kind of inhibition that had kind of gotten hold of me at that point, because you know, I was young, and like all young people, they don't really care what people around them think, they just do, which is phenomenal. It's as we grow older and listen to other people, you know, we kind of start having these inhibitions and thinking, you know, this is the way we should worship, or this is the way we should dance or sing or whatever. And so I had the pleasure of being in that church, and Michael Bassett was our pastor at the time. Yeah, so we got to sing with Barry Manilow 8 nights at the Albert Hall and 1 night at Wembley, and just kind of looking out at Wembley or even the Albert Hall, both of them phenomenal buildings, but just seeing like a whole arena of lights and everybody singing in kind of like a harmonic atmosphere of lights glowing, singing I Write the Songs and you know, or Mandy or whatever it was at the time. But I just remember the feeling behind it and thinking, I just love to sing. You know, it could be anything. And I was 18, I think, at the time, and somebody had mentioned to me that I could sing, but I didn't have a very nice voice, and I sounded like a boy. And you know, and they didn't mean it. But being young and being impressionable, and you know, I kind of held on to that for, you know, the next couple of decades. And after that, I never sang. I never was ever part of the worship team. I never joined. In fact, not long after that, I left church. Not because of that, but it was just throughout that time, you know, I started my career and different things like that, and you know, found that life in all of its fullness was fun and not godly. So yeah, I never sang after that. I sang at home. I sang all around the house, wherever I was, I sang, but I never ever sang if there was anybody else there. So that's kind of how the love of music really came about. And you know, kind of like the genre or the passion was always very much kind of a country, American, southern, and I guess that song that you heard is very, you know, when I wrote it, again, with my very limited skill set that I have on playing guitar to a very mediocre standard, being a new player, you know, never written any songs before. I just, in my head, as I was writing it, it sounded very southern, and I had like an image and a picture in my mind as to how I wanted it to sound and people to see the picture of it. And so yeah, it all kind of started back then, and this is kind of where we've got to now. It's kind of a real sort of jump around of my life. It's not really been like a steady curvature of my life, really. It's been a little bit like a heartbeat monitor, where it's been like this, you know, constantly, which I guess shows that I'm alive and it's not kind of, you know, flatlined. So I don't know. I don't really know where to go from there. Ask me some questions.
Huh?
Ask me some questions. I don't really know where to go from there.
Well, what about the guitar?
Again, it's amazing how words really affect you, because somebody had mentioned that, you know, I wouldn't really lead worship because I didn't play an instrument. And so, you know, me being an Obridge, you know, put on my big Obridge pants and thought, you know what, I'm not going to answer you with words, I'm going to answer you with actions. So my husband plays the guitar, and so I just said to him, right, teach me 3 chords. I hear that every song, worship song you can sing and play, is 3 chords. So like basic version. So my husband was very much like, oh, here we go, another fad. So, but he taught me 3 chords, and you know, and I learned my first song. You know, started with something really simple, and I think the first song I ever managed to play all the way through cleanly was "Goodness of God." But you know, even now I still can't. I don't really remember songs without having the chord in front of me. You know, and again, that's something that's, you know, just part of my makeup. I struggle to retain a lot of information like that sometimes. So, but yeah, I just thought I'd pick up a guitar. And as soon as I did, and as soon as I started seeing some fruits of learning things, I just fell in love with it. Yeah, I mean, I've played lots of instruments. I played violin, played clarinet, you know, played recorder, and in Dad's case, triangle. And you know, my best thing that I played a lot in my youth was truant.
Yes, I can attest to that. I can see all the guitars,
and that created a lot of noise.
Yeah. I can see the guitars behind you, because you know, when you get passionate about something, you're a bit like your mum, and
yeah. I mean, they're not all mine, just so you know, guys. You know, I'm not that greedy. There are actually, when I started playing, my at the time 10-year-old daughter also started playing, or 10-year-old daughter. And to be fair, she's just had her guitar lesson. She has a guitar lesson on Zoom every 2 weeks, and her guitar teacher is the best friend of Sting's guitar player. So yeah, so, and she is, I mean, she's way better than me. She's phenomenal. Really proud of her. I put things out on social media sometimes about her when I can sneak videos in and things like that. But she's just work at things, whereas she's just so naturally gifted. I mean, phenomenal. So proud of her.
Yeah, she is actually. Yeah, she's in lots of different ways. So we're looking for big things from her. Yeah. So
that's my daughter. I've got a daughter.
I'm going to ask you to share your testimony, because I know that, you know, a lot of people will be able to relate to it. I mean, in a way, your testimony is kind of my failure almost as a mom, you know, or that's kind of how it felt for a season. But, you know, one thing I know is that when you did come back to the Lord, I remember we stood together at the back of Alive Church Lincoln, worshiping God together, just holding on to each other and crying, and our arms raised. And you said to me, did you ever think that I would come back? And I said, I never doubted it, never doubted it. And I never did. And even though it was hard sometimes, I never did. But before I do that, I promised last week we had Fumi, was on last week. She was tremendous. And she asked me if I would play a commercial for her ministry. So I said yes. So we're going to have a quick break. You can have a quick swig of your drink while I play this.
Infinity Grace Achievers International Academy, an arm of Infinity Grace Achievers International Foundation, presents 2023 free vocational training. Offering free vocational training program in catering, hairdressing, barbing, fashion designing, textile and kampala making, cosmetology, cream and soap making, makeup and gele, photography, leather works, music production, master of traditional ceremony, computer and phone repair. For registration, please call or WhatsApp on +234 81 46 93 5603 or +234 8034 26 28 33 or +234 8034 44 4901. For more information, please contact our Facebook at Great Achievers International or visit our website www.greatachieversinternational.org. Email info@greatachievers.org. Instagram Infinity Great Achievers, or visit our office at Infinity House, Plot 13 Ayedu Estate, along Heritage Hotel Street, Ogoluwa, Osogbo. IGAF, we educate, we empower, and we encourage.
Yeah, so, and that's where I've been there, Osogbo, and so I met some wonderful people there. So Kelly, I'm going to give you the screen. I want you to kind of go back to when you left church, really, because you were, I mean, you know, let me just talk a little bit about what I saw before that. I saw a young girl who received Jesus, who got born again, spirit-filled, praying in tongues, who came home from school clutching a letter from her daddy from the Falklands saying, "Mommy, Daddy said Jesus loves me. Do you think he's born again?" And I saw a girl who, at like 8 years old, laid hands on people and saw the sick recover. I saw a little girl who saw legs grow out. Do you remember that? Down in Cornwall, you lifted a guy's legs and saw his legs grow out. And so I saw this girl who understood the things of God, was so close to Jesus. And I'm saying all that to say nobody is immune to the world. And we do need to pray for
it's a choice. It's a choice, isn't it? I mean, you know, I grew up, you know, in a Christian family, and you know, Dad wasn't saved, but you know, for all of the non-saved humans out there, you would never have known, because he was just such a loving, warm, generous, kind human, and championed church and the Phoenix Club and, you know, Zeus Christian Fellowship in Germany, and, you know, just, you know, really championed us as a family being, you know, followers of Christ. And I see those mirrors in my own life in a lot of ways, which, you know, really encourages me as well. But I think kind of going back to my childhood when I was at Filing Hall with my brother, you know, we had our little prayer meetings. You know, nobody was a Christian, but, you know, we both loved Jesus, and we were in the woods having our little, I mean, you know, some people could probably thought it was a bit weird, but being in the woods having our little Christian fellowship and praying for each other and praying for our friends. And you know, two of my brother's best friends got saved at school. And yeah, it was just, you know, we were kind of, I think, known a little bit, or certainly I was, as the weird kid because I was Christian. And I think that kind of followed me all the way through my life, really. And you know, I guess that's one of the reasons why I ended up kind of going off the beaten path a bit, you know, peer pressure. You know, I got into work. I started my career and, you know, soon discovered that I was young, I was clever, I was attractive. People loved me. You know, they wanted to be around me. I was fun. And, you know, so I drink a bit, and, you know, and I smoke, and I started doing drugs and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. And, you know, because it made me feel popular and good and attractive, and all those things I desperately wanted to feel about myself, which I couldn't seem to find at the time in God. But that wasn't because it wasn't there. It was because I had I didn't have my own relationship with God. You know, I was living through you, I guess. You know, I was living through being sort of spoon-fed on a Sunday, you know, not really kind of getting into the meat of, you know, the scripture and, you know, having a relationship of my own with God. You know, I was kind of hanging on the coattails of you and thinking, well, you know, mum's covered. So, you know, she prays for me all the time. You know, God's got me. I don't need to do any of the work. So, but, you know, little did I know, I soon discovered, you know, all these things which of the world, which were, you know, sinning is fun, isn't it? You know, it wouldn't be fun if it, you know, we wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun. So, you know, I just spent a lot of time doing, you know, drugs, and I was, you know, in some abusive relationships and, you know, different things like that. And, you know, I got married and, you know, for all the wrong reasons. And I ended up, you know, after 10 years of leaving my ex-husband and just kind of realizing that, you know, I deserved more, really. I deserved to be special. You know, I deserved to be somebody that somebody absolutely adored and appreciated, and, you know, saw all of the gold inside of me. And, you know, and I still feel that way. I still think, you know, we need to be, you know, looking for the gold in each other rather than, you know, finding the negative elements. And, you know, that's something that I'm really passionate about. It doesn't really matter what age, but there's so many of us out there who, you know, the first thing we do is you know, look at the flaws that we have and look at the negative things about ourselves instead of raising each other up, whether it's women or men, you know, building each other up. The first thing we want to do is cut people down, so then it makes us feel better about ourselves. And, you know, so I went through, you know, a couple of decades of destruction and, you know, ruining my life really in some ways, but excelling in, you know, my career and things like that in other ways and being really successful. And when I left my ex-husband, I decided that I just wanted a break. And I met my now husband, Steve, who we've been together for 18 years. I can't believe it's that long. That definitely means I'm getting old, which makes you even older, Mum. But so, although you don't look it, some people think we're sisters. But
Maybe you.
but yeah, and you know, Steve's not a Christian, and you know, I wasn't in church when I met him, and I'm really, really blessed that this man, who is totally the most fantastic human being for me, supports me in my faith and in my choices, regardless of what his opinions are about it. And that, you know, we can pray as a family, and we can pray for the kids, and the kids pray, and you know, and we pray before we're leaving for things, and you know, and having the grandparents, so mum and dad across the road from us, you know, we can come together and, you know, try and instill that kind of foundation into them. And about, I don't know how many years ago it was, but they were babies, and you know, God really kind of maneuvered people into my life. You know, I always consider him the architect of life. You know, and an architect has the rights to move walls, change designs, you know, knock things down, rebuild things, you know, tweak things, you know, do whatever they want to do to make things right. And I kind of feel like, you know, we moved into this house, and back in 2005, I think it was, something like that. And very strangely, a phenomenal couple actually bought the house next door to us, and Roy and Lynn Eildon. And every time like a cat died, Roy would come over and bury it for us and have a little service. And, you know, Lynn would take care of Finn, our son, who was a newborn. And yeah, just really we're great neighbours, just showed us love. You know, they were there for us when we needed anything, and we knew that we could call on them. And when I was really struggling kind of mentally with some postnatal depression, after Millie was born, do you need me to, you're pausing, do you want me to stop?
Well, I was just going to say, you kind of you're jumping a bit, because what I was going to say is that I seem to remember that for about 4 moves, everywhere you went, there was a Christian. You moved in, and the Salvation Army was next door. You moved somewhere else, and there was a Christian next door.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
I lined it up for you.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And so then you came here, and Ron and Roy and Lynn were next door. But tell us a little bit about the dark times that, you know, you know, when.
Yeah, I mean, I very much glance back occasionally. I don't really tend to ponder too much, but I kind of glance back because it's good to see, you know, how far you've come. And somebody mentioned something today while they were preaching, and I thought, oh yeah, you know, I can relate to that. So it was just very much, you know, I was struggling with postnatal depression. I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know it had a label or anything like that. I just knew that after 4 months of still being in my pajamas and crying every day, something wasn't quite right. And nobody really kind of checked in on me. I was quite isolated here. I'd go back and forth to London every week or every couple of weeks so I could, you know, bring the kids and just, you know, like palm them off. I think if you remember, you know, I'd kind of track you when you came to my house, and I'd literally, if Finn had a poo, I'd be like, oh, you know, you can just hold on for just like half an hour, Finn, just hold on. And as soon as you walk through the door, I'd be like, there you go, he needs to be changed. And you know, it was kind of like, yeah. So, you know, it was quite for somebody who wanted children so much.
Yes.
you know, and ending up having children quite late, I guess, in comparison to a lot of people nowadays. You know, I kind of thought that, you know, I had my own office at work. So I thought, you know what, it'll just like sleep for 10 hours while I work. You know, nobody told me that, you know, you have to feed them and change them and, you know, all the stuff that goes with the baby, and that they just basically cling to you for, you know, 24 hours. And so it was a bit of a shock to the system, and all the way through kind of like, you know, when you do kind of like the birthing plan and all those different things, and you have your pre-meetings with the midwives and all that sort of stuff, nobody really said anything. So I was a bit shocked, and it sounds really stupid, but because you think I'd know, but I never knew. So it was a bit of a shock to me, but and then I got pregnant quite quickly after having Finn, which again was another shock to the system. But you know, we were really happy. We always wanted more children, and but unfortunately, I lost that baby, and then I got pregnant a couple of months later with our daughter Millie. So there's 20 months between Finn and Millie, and so my hormones were probably raging a bit anyway, you know, from having 3 pregnancies in, you know, 2 years, less than 2 years. And yeah, I was just not great. And I went and saw my GP again, who was just amazing, Dr. Baker. And again, a Christian. You know, my GPs, most of the doctors are Christian, so I just was so grateful for that. And I'd spoken to Roy and Lynn had moved house by then. They'd sold their house, but they'd stayed in the village, and I'd kept in touch with them. And I'd called Lynn and I'd said, I really feel like the kids need to have a foundation like I did, but I'm not coming back to church. You know, it's not for me. You know, I'm done with church. You know, I'm you know, I'm good. I don't want to upset the apple cart or anything like that. And but you know, I know for me that I always go back to God when I need Him. So when I cry out, you know, He says, "Child, come and sit in the shadow of the Shaddai." And you know, so even not being in church and professing that I am no longer a Christian, I still cried out to Him. And so I rang Lynn. I said, "Oh, where can I go to? I really feel like they need a foundation." And she said, "Oh, we go to a place called New Life." So it was called New Life at the time. And so I went with her on my own. And I like cried all the way there. I cried pretty much going in the door. People must have just thought I was crazy. And a guy who's on worship team who played the bass came off stage. They did the prayer at the end if anybody wanted to rededicate their life, or if they wanted to, you know, get to know Jesus, etc., become a Christian. And I was like, I'm not putting my hand up. You can forget that. I'm not here for me. No way, I'm just here. The music's good though, I enjoyed that. And he came off the stage and it's like really, really busy. It just seemed really chocker, which, you know, I don't know if it was, but it felt really busy. And it's a busy church. It's, you know, it's a very big, busy church. But he came off the stage and he says, "I've got a word from God for you." And I was like, oh God, why? Trust them, everybody should navigate to me. You know, and I was really awful, and I think I was really rude to him. And he gave me this word from God, and I went away, and I was thinking, oh, I don't know if I flipping want to go back there again. And but I decided to meet with the family pastor because the kids, I wanted the kids to come, and Finn has some challenges. At the time, they were probably particularly more prominent. And I just wanted to make sure he would be okay and feel comfortable and safe, and etc. And I walked into the group Toddle In, I think it was, or something like that, and she was there. But the lady on Toddle In had said, "Oh, you're Kelly. You know, my husband was telling me about you. You saw him on Sunday." And I was like, "Oh, so they're talking about me now, are they? You know, what are they gossiping about?" And she was just being ever so lovely. And yeah, so I met Claire, the worship pastor, Claire Williams, and the children's pastor, Claire Williams. And it just, the more the week went on, I just seemed to mentally drop. It was like the more time that I spent connecting with Christians or coming into contact with Christians, the worse that week got for me emotionally and mentally. And I wasn't on any medication. I decided to do it through counselling and, you know, therapy and things like that, because I didn't really, I'd done drugs for so much in my life. I didn't really want any more drugs in my body, regardless of, you know, what they were for. And I think it was like on the Thursday, there was a knock on my door and I opened it, and it was the guy from the worship team who'd knocked on the door. So I opened it. I was like, what are you doing here? What are you following me? Again, being really kind of like paranoid and you know, what do you want? And then he was like, I've got a parcel for you. He was actually my postman. And I didn't realise all this time. I didn't know on Sunday, but he was my postman. So that was really peculiar. And then on the Friday, it just got to the point where I'd made the decision that, you know, Steve deserved a better wife. The kids deserved a better mother. I was just so angry all the time. I would throw things, you know, and even now Finn reminds me when we talk about stuff, because I'm quite open with them about how I dealt with things and, you know, and how I needed God. But, you know, he used to remind me and say, "Oh, do you remember, Mummy, when you threw my mater across the living room and it broke?" And so, you know, and I carried a lot of guilt for him remembering stuff like that. But, you know, I use it as a tool now. And, but I just felt like they deserved somebody better. And so I kissed them goodbye because Steve was dropping them at the childminder, because I was still at home because I wasn't ready to go back to work. And I'd kissed Steve goodbye and I just said, you know, see you later. And I kept it together. I didn't cry. I kept it very private and secret. And after they left, I cried, and I drove up to the chemist in Cherry, and I sat in my car for a little while and just crying and just thinking, well, Steve's a bit of a neat freak, so I don't really want him to have to clean anything up. So, you know, I need to do something that's clean, and, you know, so he won't have to, you know, have that to deal with. So, yeah, so I thought I'll go and get some pills and I'll do that. So, and as I was about to get out of the car and I was sitting there crying, who turns up but Dave Law, you know, the guy who showed up at my door, you know, the guy who came off the platform and gave me a word. And it was just like, he was just really fine-tuned to listening to God about being obedient and being in the right place. And, you know, because of him, he saved my life. And, you know, I'm forever grateful for him. You know, he's no longer with us, but he was just a wonderful human. And I don't know if I would be here if he hadn't have been faithful and turned up in the right place. And he saw me crying, and I can't really recall, because it was very surreal how I either opened my window or he opened the door and he put his hand in and he just prayed for me in that moment in the car. And what I think was really weird was that it wasn't weird. I can't really describe it. But my life just really changed in that moment. You know, I still had my struggles, but I think the only way to kind of describe it was the first time that instead of like looking around the well, you know, and I think I've described it before, was that, you know, I was so blinkered and all I could see was the bricks on the well, whereas actually the prayers made me think, look up. And I looked up and I actually felt, you know, metaphorically, not, you know, it didn't see a bright light or anything like that, but it made me feel like actually there was hope and there was light at the end of this tunnel. And I guess the rest is history, really. So
Yeah, we
I went
just
to
came over
Alpha
the last
for,
few years. Yeah. But
yeah, you know, I went to Alpha, you know, I had
yeah.
therapy for a year. I cried, you know, all the time. And I used to go to Alpha and I used to come home and get into bed and I'd sit there crying and Steve would just look at me and I go, I'm just healing. You know, I'm crying all the time, but I'm just healing. And he'd like roll his eyes. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
I mean,
what that kind of shows you is how important it is to do what God tells you to do. You know, even though sometimes it might seem strange. I mean, you know, for Dave, he didn't really know you. He'd had a word for you that first day, but you know, there hadn't been a relationship built or anything. He was your postman, and he just happened to be.
I think that was the third time I met him. Literally.
Yeah, and yet he was bold enough to just come over, and you know, and it's only after he'd done that that he found out how vital it was. I mean, you could have just been crying because you spilt your milk, couldn't you? You know, but it's
could
just
for any reason at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't even need a reason, to be fair. I could just cry anything. I mean, you know, we're still like that.
Yeah, so it's so vital. And that was before I moved up here. So, yeah. So
it took a few years. I mean, I did, you know, do the deal with you that, you know, if I gave you grandkids, you'd have to move up from London. So, you know, I wasn't going to let you.
Grandkids.
I was never going to let you, you know. What are you talking about? I was never going to let you, like, not go back on that promise. You want grandkids, you're going to be growing up.
You made that. I never asked for grandkids.
And if you don't remember, you also made the deal that if we gave you grandkids, that we would have 1 to 2 weeks a year holiday without them on our own, and you'd have to look after them.
This is all in your imagination.
No. I made you sign it.
I distinctly excuse us while we have a mother-daughter disagreement. I distinctly remember saying, "Don't have children for me."
That's not how I heard it.
I absolutely love my grandchildren. They're absolutely wonderful. Do you remember this one? Do you remember this picture? I don't know if I can. No,
I hope it's
not showing it. It's not showing, but I have a great picture, and it's not showing up. You know, I think it was a great picture of you, me, and Millie together. We do have a great relationship, and I thank God for that. That you know we're like best friends in a way. You know, you said people think we're sisters, but you know it's just that we are kind of good friends.
It's because I'm an old soul and you're young.
Well, that's what it is. Yeah. But I think what's made it special is that we can talk about anything because we're not just mum and daughter, we're sisters in Christ, and that has enabled us to talk about anything. I'm going to play another song of yours now. I can't remember which one I played last time. And then so let's play that. Give you a bit of a breather. Beautiful. Yeah, and you know, one of the things that that's really blessed me about your gift, your singing, is that and blessed me about you with your gift is how committed you are to develop it. And you know, you've got a great range, and you know, God has blessed you too, because you've been invited to do things that just, you know, because. So tell me a little bit about that, because you know you've been
Yeah.
out to London.
Yeah, so you know, I've had a few different opportunities. I think it kind of really started in lockdown, where obviously we couldn't physically go to church, and I was really fortunate that the pastors over in a church over in Horncastle asked me to come and lead worship for them with the guitar each week, which kind of, you know, was the first real, not really use the word opportunity, but the first real kind of privilege of sharing my gift. I'd never sang in front of people really, you know, other than in my home church. And, you know, I was still very much struggling with the battle mentally of not having a very good voice, and feeling that, you know, and feeling, you know, that I don't get picked because people don't really like my voice, or, you know, I sound like a boy, etc. But, you know, it just really blessed me to bless others. And, you know, I also, and that was playing my guitar, which was the first time I played my guitar in public as well, over a screen, like actually in front of real people, is a totally new thing, and that's scary as anything. But I, you know, did some live lounges over in America, in Arizona as well, and also led some worship over in North Carolina over lockdown, and more recently, over the last year or so, I've been invited to be part of a team which is a collaboration of different worship leaders from different churches, with something called Abide, which is based out of Hope Church down in Staines, which is Deborah Stewart Brink and the Brink family down there, who, oh, well, they're just family to me. You know, I've known them since as long as I can remember, and I just adore them. But, you know, they also see gold in me, and, you know, see my heart for worship, and not a heart for platform, but just a heart for worship. And if I'm really honest, you know, my richest times of worship, regardless of going to places, or, you know, leading worship, or, you know, being part of the team at my local church, you know, which I absolutely adore, you know, Alive Church Central, Alive Lincoln Central. And you know, every time I'm part of the worship team, I just, oh, I think people just make fun of me now because I laugh and smile so much, especially on practice nights, because I'm just so full of joy for just being there. You know, I don't even have to have a mic in my hand, you know, but just worshipping with them and the teams just brings me such, just love it. You know, I have the pleasure of being part of the ground level worship team, and again, one of my most favorite Tuesdays of the month. I just, oh, another phenomenal team. And yeah, but of all of those fantastic experiences and moments that I get, and, you know, the Holy Spirit comes on, and just the presence is there, and it's just such an anointed environment. The richest times for me have always been, you know, sitting on a floor in my office in here, many times in here, or in my living room while I've, you know, snuck off for a day, or, you know, when everybody's out and the curtains are closed and I've got my guitar, and I'm literally just crying and playing and singing, and, you know, clinging to the hope that, you know, Jesus brings to my life, particularly when, you know, I'm going through difficult times. The songs that, you know, I wrote, you know, they weren't out of, you know, roads paved with tarmac. they were made out of Roman roads, you know, where they've been bumpy times and, you know, pain, and but you know, I have to constantly think, you know, I need to have a Job spirit on me, and say thank you. And you know, and Rick Warren always talks about what's the lesson, and you know, and I have to be grateful for it, and even though it hurts, you know, and in this season now, it's another difficult season for me, and but those are the seasons which bring the most joy in my worship as well, because I just cling and cling as much as I can to, you know, his faithfulness and his truth, that he'll never forsake me, he'll never leave me, and you know, he never has done. So you know, if I look back and through all the trials and tribulations and difficult times, you know, I can honestly say that, yeah, it was tough. It was really hard. I was on my knees and I was at the end, and there's been many times, many over the last many years. But, you know, he says he'll never leave us, he'll never forsake us. And, you know, he keeps those promises. And just because they don't always look like what our picture of them is to be, or what we want them to look like, again, you know, he's the architect. So he knows what the end story is. You know, my stories, for me, in my own eyes, is not yet written. But it's, you know, he's written it. You know, he knows. He knew long before I came along, and I have to just trust that he's got me, regardless of how it looks in the natural. He's got me.
Absolutely, he's got you. And as mum, I've spent many hours on my knees for you. I still do, of course. Still pray for you and the
Well, when
family.
you're down there, can you like clean next time?
Yeah, you know your mother.
I know I believe in miracles, but you know.
I asked you for a verse, and you gave me Psalm 139:14. I'll praise thee, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. Why is that a verse that you picked? What does that mean to you?
In the Passion Translation, I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well. It's the Passion Translation of that. Was that the Passion or was that the NIV? Let's have a look. I thank you, God, for making me so mysteriously complex. Everything you do is marvelously breathtaking. It simply amazes me to think about it, how thoroughly you know me, Lord. And, you know, and that's the Passion Translation. And I love the Passion Translation. I bought a Passion Translation Bible, a blue embossed one in America when I was in Florida with some friends of mine who have a church out there. And I moved house and I lost it and I can't find it anywhere. And sometimes you just want to flick through pages and highlight things on physical pages. And I still haven't got it. And even to this day, I'm like, oh, I wish I could find it. So yeah, but I love the Passion Translation, and I just love how it, you know, thanks, you know, I mean, if you made anybody mysteriously complex, it was me. You know, everything that he does, you know, I you know, stand in awe and amazement. And you know, and despite that, I am just a bunch of, you know, nerves and stress and, you know, all the kind of natural pressures of life and things that I go through and the mistakes that I make and, you know, the things that I do which are wrong and whatever it can be. He knows them and he still loves me regardless. And I think that just is the epitome of a true parent, really, isn't it? you know, somebody who, I mean, you know, let's face it, I was not the best child in the world, you know, and
You were
if you'd
never
had
boring.
me first, if you'd have had me first, then, you know, my brother wouldn't have been born. So we know that. But
you made up for it. You made up for it.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
I finished well. So
Yeah, you did. Absolutely. Well, you haven't finished yet.
Yeah, I'm not finished. I hopefully not too soon, but
I'm just going to play a little commercial before we finish because, you know, I have to do a little plug, and then I want to ask you a question.
Have unique gifts that make us special. To find out what those gifts are, you have to look at yourself. Start by looking at your primary characteristics, your personality, your values, and your interests. These will all play a role in understanding why you act the way you do and why you have the gifts you have. So take the time to explore who you are and you'll find amazing things about yourself. With our free Motivational Gifts Masterclass. www.themotivationalgifts.com.
I love the way it says gifts.
I was just thinking that.
But hey, you know,
you got a gifted job.
Yeah, Joe. But question just before we close, because we're right on the cusp now. Why would you recommend that somebody attend Real Life Bible College?
I think that it's really important to underpin, you know, all of the kind of the theological reasons. And, you know, I think I described it before as the meat on the bone. I think, you know, when we get saved, you know, it's very much, we're in a kind of a euphoric state at the time. And, you know, it's kind of a bit like, you know, what now? And I think this really kind of, you know, gives you the foundation and helps you grow. And, you know, it kind of opens up questions for yourself, like, you know, why am I here? What am I designed for? You know, what's my purpose? You know, what does this mean in the Bible? You know, I think there's so many different interpretations of the word out there that I think it's good to have somebody who can unpack a lot of that stuff, you know, out of kind of like a legalese style. And, you know, I mean, I went to Bible school when I was still in school. And I think, you know, that's, you know, the reason why I've got the cemented foundation that I've got. You know, it's the meat on the bone.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to eat bone all the time. No one wants to gnaw on bones. We want proper meat as well.
Oh, absolutely. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on. You've been a real blessing, and you know, we certainly didn't run out of. Well, mind you, why did I ever think we might run out of things to say?
Oh, Bridge, run out of things to say.
Never.
Not possible.
No, not possible. Thank you so much for watching, guys. You know, I hope that you have received something today from Kelly's amazing testimony, and also from the relationship that we have, because we're very blessed. We're very blessed to have a great relationship as mum and daughter. And hey, we don't always agree, right? But we love each other. And I believe that God uses our relationship for his glory. And so, yeah, so see you next week, guys. I'm going to play us out with Kelly. So bye.